Today on Locked On Red Wings, Carter Bear signs his 3-year entry-level contract. What are the fine details on that contract, and where do we see him playing in his upcoming season? We also break down the new schedule that was released for the 25-26 year.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. And the Detroit Red Wings have signed their first-round pick, 13th overall from the latest NHL entry-level draft in Carter Bear. We'll talk about that contract, what are the small, fine details about that, and where we expect him to play and why, as well as breaking down the Red Wings schedule that dropped on the same day. I believe that was Wednesday, right, Scotty? That those two things were dropped, and then if we have time, we'll talk about how the NHL is kind of wilding with some of these U25 lists they've been dropping because it's interesting. I have thoughts. Do you have thoughts, Scotty?
You know what? Hardly. Not often.
Not much rattling around up there. Well, let me put something up in that head. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Scotty, let's get back to Carter Bear. 13th overall in 2025 NHL entry draft. He is 18 years old, played his last season with the Everett Silvertips. He is likely to be a winger, and he played really well with the Everett Silvertips of the WHL, part of the broader CHL. 82 points in 56 games played. Obviously, I would take the huge point totals of the CHL with a little bit of a grain of salt. The best players in every draft year usually light it up, but this is still nonetheless a player that is definitely worth getting excited about, right? This is a guy we project to probably play in the middle six of the Detroit Red Wings as like just the floor, right? That's where we expect him to play. He brings a type of game style, play style that this team desperately needs, with not just his two-way game, but his ability to play with pace and get into the corners, but also get to the tough areas and score in high danger areas as well. He brings a little bit of everything, something that the Detroit Red Wings need, and so I'm sure they were very happy to get him on a 3-year entry-level contract without much of a problem. That entry-level contract, Scotty, carries a annual value of $975,000 for those 3 years. But really, the devil is in the details with these entry-level contracts because they're all pretty much the same for a lot of these players. But there's some details of this, Scotty, that make it a little bit more interesting as to when he signed this contract.
Yeah, and I think, there's always a lot of excitement, obviously, just around the signing of the ELC and whatnot. I think the intricacies in this one are just interesting because it is based on, I don't even know how to word it, like timing, like is of, the essence a little bit more, or a little bit more just like apparent with it. But I like I said, there's always excitement surrounding it. And I think, after we talk about that, as you mentioned, the big question is kind of where do we see him this upcoming season?
Yeah, and there's only two locations you can see him, and it's a good opportunity to remind folks that there is an agreement between the NHL and the CHL that CHL players cannot play in the AHL until they're 20 years old, and it can only either be the WHL. He can either return to the Silvertips or he can go to the Detroit Red Wings.
Right.
That does change next year when the new CBA kicks in as of the 26-27 year. I think every NHL club can elect one 19-year-old to elevate their development time and send them to the AHL. So starting next year, one player will be able to go to the AHL that's 19 years old that exists in the CHL. But the point is moot with Carter Bear regardless because, one, he's 18, not 19, and by the time he is eligible, that'll be next year. So next year, yeah, we can do it. If we want to have him play in the AHL, that's something we can do. But for this season, it is a moot point. I find it really hard to believe he'll be playing with the Detroit Red Wings this season unless he puts on a lot of muscle and really impresses at camp. So I think the conversation is pretty short on this one.
For sure. Even if, like, let's say he puts on a lot of muscle and just looks absolutely incredible, I still don't think that he would be playing for the Detroit Red Wings. Certainly not like on opening night or like early in the season or anything. I think we're a ways away from that. But exciting for him, like I said, always exciting to see them sign.
Yes. So between those two options, it feels like he'll go to training camp, and then as it gets closer to, we'll probably see a little bit of him in preseason, I would imagine. Then as it gets closer to the start of the regular season, they'll send him back to the WHL, where he will continue his development. Because, I mean, even if he has a good camp, the prospects that are in front of him, right, for a role on this team, there's so many because this prospect pool is so deep right now. Back when, and Max wrote about it in one of his mailbags today, back when Lucas Raymond made the jump and skipped the AHL and came to the NHL, the prospect pool was a lot thinner back then. He was a 4th overall pick. And the Red Wings had no depth. Jacob Vrana got hurt. They desperately needed a spot to be filled in the top 6. Right. Yeah. And while the Red Wings definitely have a spot to be filled on that top line left wing, there's a lot of prospects in front of him.
Unless he's a top line winger at 18 right now, then there's not really much of a conversation to be had.
Right. Yeah. He's going to have to beat out guys like Nate Danielson and Michael brandsegg-nygard, Carter Mazur even, guys who are way further along in their development, closer to the NHL, and those guys are already competing with guys on the NHL roster for a roster spot. Yeah. So it's just kind of goes without saying, we see him going back to Everett. And the other important detail to this too, Scotty, is because he signed his ELC this year and didn't wait until next offseason, the Red Wings get 2 potential slides to that contract. That's the other big detail, is they can slide this contract twice so that it would not begin until, I believe, 27-28 at the absolute latest. So while he's signing his ELC, it might not begin until 27-28, which is a pretty important thing for the Detroit Red Wings to get him signed now so they can have that added team control on that ELC and RFA status.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. The timing of everything is really more so the interesting part of this news. So, I mean that's certainly what do you want to call it? A wrinkle to throw into it. That's certainly something to pay attention to.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as ELCs go, that's pretty much all the details you got to pay attention to. Is the annual value is pretty much standardized. It varies by maybe $100,000 for each player, depending on where they were drafted. It's not like the NFL where these guys are getting massive signing bonuses and guaranteed contracts now. I mean, it's $975,000. It's going to start when in the next 2 or 3 years. It's just whether or not they can slide it and if he's going to make the NHL. And chances are he's probably not going to make the NHL quite yet because the NHL is a developmental league. It's not, again, like the NFL where guys come right into the league and play, or the NBA where guys come right in the league and play. So be patient. Carter Bear is going to be a great Red Wing, but it's going to take a little bit for him to get here. End of the day.
For sure.
We're going to head to a break. When we return, Scotty, we'll talk about the NHL schedule as that has been released. So stay tuned to segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal? Game Time's Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. And if you ever wonder what your seat will actually look like before you buy, the app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. With Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment 2, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. Scotty, Red Wings announced, just like all the NHL teams, the NHL announced the schedules for each and every team across the league. Big news here, Red Wings are playing 82 games. That's crazy. I know no one expected that. What stood out to you when you were looking at the calendar?
Just a horrible joke to enter this. Honestly, my first thought was I forgot that they were back in the Olympics. So I was like, whoa, we only play 4 games in February.
Not a single home game in February, too.
Yeah, that's a long gap between home games there. So that was honestly my very first thought. Fun, excited to go back to the Olympics. Obviously, just forgetful moment on my part, but again, long time without playing a game at LCA.
You're getting up there in age. Those senior moments, they're starting to come by.
You are older than me.
Okay, that was uncalled for.
That was okay. Anyway, yeah,
we're a serious podcast. But yeah, there's a 3-week break in the middle of the season, 2-week break in the middle of the season in February, which we all asked for. I'm excited for the Olympics, don't get me wrong. But it is definitely jarring to see, like, they play a home game on January 31st, and they don't play another home game until March 4th. But
crazy.
It comes at the we get the Olympics in return, so it's definitely worth the price of admission on that one.
Sure. Not a complaint, just an observation.
I think there are 3 things that stood out to me outside of the obvious Olympic break. One was because of the Olympic break, how many back-to-backs are they going to have to play with the condensed schedule? Because the season's still ending on time. They're not adding weeks to the season. The season's ending on the 15th. I think it ended on the 16th this last season of April. So they play 11 back-to-backs, which sounds like a lot, but it, again, just came with the territory of playing in the Olympics because you lose 2 to 3 weeks for those games. It's also not the most either. I believe Seth Thopel of Lockdown Wild tweeted out that the Wild have 14 back-to-backs. That's 28 games of their 82-game season is going to be on back-to-backs. So this is going to be a very long season for a lot of these players. And I also counted at one point the Red Wings play 8 games in 12 days because of the condensed season, which is just going to be brutal on the bodies. So you're going to get a lot of hockey this season. A lot of hockey. Less time in between games, a lot more doubleheaders. So from a viewer standpoint, it's kind of exciting. You're like, it's almost getting to like baseball territory where there's a game every day, it feels like. It's a hyperbole, I get it. But like, it's significantly more. So it's fun.
For sure. One of the other things I noticed was at the end of December, there's a lot of home games there. And I think that's, maybe making up for, again, the month break of no home games there in February. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of your 8 games to end the calendar year. 6 of those are at home. So you got a little bit of a bunched up schedule there. Honestly, the after the Olympic break, the first thing that I kind of noticed was around the trade deadline, the schedule is incredibly difficult again.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. Maybe we're just cursed, but literally in March, so you have Nashville to start. Obviously, they didn't have a very good year. After that, it's Vegas, Florida, New Jersey, Florida, Tampa Bay, Dallas.
Yes.
That is your first and second week of March.
I would back up even a little bit further coming out of the Olympic break. February 26th until the trade deadline, and I don't know if we have an official date for the trade deadline, but this last year was on March 7th. You play Ottawa on the road, Carolina on the road, Nashville on the road. Then you come home to play Vegas. Then you come home to play the Stanley Cup defending Florida Panthers. Then there's the 7th, which was the trade deadline last year. We don't know. I don't know exactly when it's going to be yet. I tried to Google it. I couldn't find it, but I also didn't look very hard. People in the comments can tell me if they have the exact date. Then you go to New Jersey. Then you go back to Florida, or I guess you go to Florida after they came to you. Then you go to Tampa, and you go to Dallas. Like, that 3-week span has 2 home games against Vegas and Florida. All the rest of those are on the road. That is a gauntlet, and it comes right in the middle of a time of the year that Red Wings fans have trauma about, in being around the deadline in March, when the Red Wings historically is not the right word, the Red Wings in the last couple seasons have slumped tremendously. So you're really not being set up for success in breaking that trend, but I think it would be unfair of us to use that as an excuse. Like, this team's gonna have to find a way to get wins. If you want to make the playoffs, you're gonna have to find a way to get wins. And so it sucks, but that's the schedule you're given, and you have to be able to survive March if you want to be in that race. Now, maybe they don't want to be in that race. Gavin McKenna's up in the draft. Maybe come trade deadline, they decide, Eisner decides they're just fringy enough to sell off whatever assets they have and try to get their lottery ticket for Gavin McKenna. Then you don't even got to worry about it. Then you want to lose those games. But just, if you're like me and you want to make the playoffs, you see that 3-week stretch coming out of the Olympic break and you get a little nervous. 2 home games in 3 weeks. And most of those teams are not just playoff contenders, but aspiring Stanley Cup contenders.
Cup contenders, yeah. Yeah, man. I don't know. Like, this is always a fun exercise to do, just because like it's really all we have at this point in the calendar year to look at. But
this is our content, is
right.
Looking at the calendar.
You got to play everybody, man. Like you got to play everyone. You have to hold your own against everyone. Like I don't really do like the schedule watching thing. Like, if you're a good team, you have to beat good teams. Like, there's no, oh, well, you're gonna, like, you can afford to lose here, and then maybe you can whatever. Again, we have those conversations because, especially in July, it's all we have. But like, when the season starts, like, the Red Wings aren't looking at the calendar like, oh wait, we gotta, this is gonna be a tough stretch, we don't know, but like, oh, but we did, after this we play really bad teams, we can afford to lose these games. No, dude, you go out and you try to win every game, and good teams don't care who they play. That's really just like as simple as that. They just try to win against whoever's across from them. So I mean, I think that's pretty much everything that kind of jumped out at me. But at the end of the day, you're going to play 31 other teams, and you got to do pretty well if you want to make the playoffs.
I do want to talk about the start of the season, too, because I've heard a lot of fervor about that, too. The first, 2.5 weeks of the season, you open up at home on the 9th against Montreal. That's your home opener. Then you host Toronto on the 11th before going to Toronto on the 13th, hosting Florida, the Stanley Cup champions, on the 15th, hosting Tampa on the 17th, and then hosting Edmonton, this other Stanley Cup finalist, on the 19th. So you start the season.
Division game until the third week of the season.
Right. You don't play a non-division team until Edmonton.
Whoa.
The third week of the season. And you don't play a non-playoff team until Buffalo on the 22nd, which is the following game after Edmonton. But again, same factors apply that you were just talking about. Like, you got to be good teams if you want to be a good team. And I think a lot of the people, like, oh, the Red Wings could start 0-6. And I think that says a lot more about what people are thinking about this team than they maybe even realize. Right. I think sometimes, like, people say this, and it's just like, well, if you think 3/4 of the league are better than you and you could start 0-6, then I think you're also maybe not intentionally admitting that maybe you don't view this team as a playoff team. So, I mean, I have playoff aspirations. I hope the Red Wings have playoff aspirations, but I also recognize, like, this is an imperfect team, and there's a lot of tough teams in this division that you're going to have to prove that you can beat, because there's only so many points that can go around, and you play your division the most. And if your division has 5 playoff teams, like it did last season, this division had 5 playoff teams last season. That's incredible. We had both wild cards. The Atlantic had both wild cards. So it just got to find a way to get wins.
Yeah.
End of the story.
Pretty much.
So I think it's funny when people are like, "Oh, it's such a hard schedule to open up against." It's like, yeah, and I think saying that, it kind of admits to yourself that this team's not on the same par as a lot of these teams.
Right. That's
even
also,
if you don't
those
recognize
are divisional opponents. Like, oh, you start off the season tough, so you don't think we're better than half the division. Is all you're saying there? Like, that's
well. And so take this on the flip side. So last season, the Red Wings had a fairly soft schedule in the first half and a brutal schedule in the back half. This season, it's a little bit flipped. Obviously, March, we talked about the start of March being bad, but the second half of March isn't bad, and April isn't bad. If you can survive the early portion of the season, you can put yourself in a position to have success late in the season. Because to end the season after that gauntlet, where going to the 14th, and you end that road trip and you play Dallas on the road, you come home to face Calgary, who's been a non-playoff team for a couple of years, Montreal, who just got into the playoffs this last year, but I still think is in the same tier as you, Boston, who's coming down. All three of those are home games. And you face Ottawa, another team that just broke through but is on a very similar tier as you. Buffalo, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, all three of those missed the playoffs, and then Philadelphia again. Rangers just missed the playoffs. Minnesota, who is a perennial round one knockout. Columbus, who is a perennial playoff misser. Philadelphia, New Jersey, Tampa, Florida. So the last 2 games of the year are tough. But that's if you can survive the first part of the season and then survive coming out of the Olympic break to the trade deadline, the second half of March and and all of your games in April have a lot of very winnable games. So it's almost like I would prefer the first half of the season to be just absolutely stacked so that the strength of schedule is weaker when you're trying to make that push into the playoffs. Give you more opportunities to win those games. It was such a tough strength of schedule going down the stretch this past year.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I honestly, I don't really have too much. Like, it's warm out, and we're talking about games when it's going to be warm out again. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, we're talking about games literally almost a calendar year in advance. Like, who knows what is going to happen? There'll be teams we think are good that won't be, and vice versa. Like you know, by next April, you know, who knows? But yeah, I think in general, I think that this is, at least you could call it, a little bit more balanced, just in the sense of it doesn't seem to be as clustered, maybe, in terms of its good teams and bad teams as last year's schedule was, which I think I'm happy about.
Yeah.
I
think I'm happy about. Scotty, final thing, and then we'll move on. Just so people know, the California road trip, the West Coast road trip, is in late October, early November. And then the Western Canada road trip is, including Seattle, because Seattle's included in the Western Canada road trip every year, is in early December, which is a change because the last couple of years it's been in February, but obviously with the Olympic break, they moved it around a little bit. So those will be our late nights. That's always where my eyes actually go first when looking at the schedule. It's like, when am I going to lose sleep? And it's always on those ones. So
yeah, you only get one of them on a weekend too. Usually I you know, you pray for our sake, at least, which no one cares about, but you kind of pray for, you know, give me a back-to-back Saturday and Sunday, right, or Friday and Saturday for the West Coast trips, so that, you know, we don't have to record after. But the California one, we got fairly lucky because the Kings one's on a Thursday, but Anaheim's on a Friday. And then San Jose's on a Sunday, so there's a strong chance that's going to be an earlier game. Yeah. But the Western Canada one, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Seattle's a Sunday, so that might be a little earlier, but not looking forward to that. That's going to be rough. Lots of coffee. I'll be drinking coffee at 11 at night. It's going to be sick. All right. Let's go to another quick break. When we return, we'll talk about how the NHL lists are kind of wilding right now. So stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. You're so hip, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You can definitely tell that the NHL lists were not fire. They were definitely wildin'. They were definitely not goated by any stretch of the imagination. I hate you so much. I'm only 29, too. I'm not even that old.
You're old.
I'll get out of here.
Old soul.
So anyway, that I will agree with. So yes, the NHL has been kind of pumping out their off-season content, and it's nothing worth getting mad about, but let me tell you why I'm mad about it.
Are you about to actually have this be the intro to this? Because you're definitely mad about it.
Well, it's just, these lists don't mean anything. Like, that's why it's not worth getting mad about. But as a Red Wings fan and a podcaster in dire need of content, I'm going to come on here and defend my stance. The first one is, what is it, Monday, Tuesday? They announce, they put the list out there of the best players U23, and it's based on points, goals, and assists. And Lucas Raymond is second in every single category, points, goals, and assists of U23 players, behind just Tim Stutzla and ahead of Seth Jarvis. But then the very next day, they release their best players U25, and they do not have Lucas Raymond on the list. But they do have the player that was directly above and below him on the list the previous day on there, and Seth Jarvis and Tim Stutzla. I have no problem with Tim Stutzla being on there. I agree. Tim Stutzla is a top player in the U25 class. But putting guys like Macklin Celebrini, putting guys like Connor Bedard, who I expect to be very good players, but don't have the track record yet that compares to Lucas Raymond's success, above him, and leaving Raymond off a day after you just posted actual statistical evidence of Lucas Raymond being very good, it just screamed like either, I think Ryan Hanna from Wayne Wales, like, this is just them, they've got to be rage baiting right now, because how do you leave Lucas Raymond off this list?
I really don't know. The Red Wings social media team usually isn't very like frisky or feisty like that, but I'm glad that
they're
they
very
replied
vanilla.
I'm glad they replied to the NHL's tweet. And like our social media team is fantastic. Like that's not slander or anything, but yeah. I don't know. Like I genuinely I don't know an angle to like defend it really. I don't have an angle to like justify it, I guess.
Well, and like he's behind. I can't even find my words right now. So Tim Stutzel was 1, Jack Hughes was 2, Matt Boldy was 3, Wyatt Johnson was 4, Cole Caulfield was 5, Connor Bedard was 6, Macklin Celebrini was 7, Matthew Nyes was 8, Seth Jarvis was 9, Matvei Michkov was 10. In my opinion, he should come no lower than 6 on this list.
Yeah.
He should be slotted in above Bedard, Celebrini, Nyes, Jarvis, and Michkov, just based on track record alone. And it's like
I'd even be okay just for like the hype, like having Bedard higher than him, but Celebrini I adamantly disagree with. Yeah.
Well, and for me, the Seth Jarvis one was the most like Seth Jarvis and Nyes.
Yeah, all of those.
I get the Celebrini and the Connor Bedard placement just because overall number 1 overall, they're going to be very good players. They're already good players, even though I don't think they've accomplished as much as Lucas Raymond has so far.
No,
but they're going to be very good players. And plus, there's the positional value argument of it. Whatever, they can be on the list. You can put them above. But Matthew Nyes, for example, is a 22-year-old who had just had his 3rd career season, who had 58 points. In Raymond's 3rd career season, he had 72 and 32 goals. Nyes, completing his 3rd, had 29 and 29. So it's like you can't even use the argument, well, Raymond's played in the league longer. Nyes has been more accomplished in fewer time. It's like that's not even true. Like, and I'm arguing with myself right now. I understand that, but that's just
Who are you talking to, bro?
But that's just I'm trying to rationalize how they leave him off the list. But again, it doesn't matter because it's a made-up list anyways. Like, it literally does not matter. It's one guy's opinion, and I disagree with it. And so does the rest of Red Wings Twitter, as they should, including the Red Wings themselves. They also posted another list that was the top 10 defensemen under 25, I believe. And Red Wings, Moritz Seider and Simon Edvinsson both made this list. So they played nice on that one. I do think that Seider should be above Brock Faber for number 2 on that list because Brock Faber did not have a very good season. So I think that's just kind of like name bias. But, I mean, they placed him as 3rd, the 3rd best defenseman under 25. Edvinsson's the 8th best defenseman under 25. I'm not going to throw a fit over that. I think it's fine. It's great that we had 2 included.
For sure. Well, yeah, I don't know. I still think the weirdest one is Raymond, and then the next weirdest one is the goalie list with Augustine.
Yeah, so, and I want to be very careful with this conversation because I want to make sure we don't come off as like slander for Augustine because we, as a podcast,
not at all,
love Trey Augustine. We love that he is listed as the 6th best goalie under 25 years old in the NHL because he's not in the NHL.
It doesn't track from that list to the Raymond. Like the logic doesn't track.
Well,
there.
for me, it's less about Augustine being on the list. Like, he's on the list. Cool, great. I love that as a Red Wings fan. But to then not include Sebastian Cossa. Like, if you're going to include Augustine, I think you have to include Sebastian Cossa on that list too. Because of the fact that Cossa has played professional hockey games, right? He's played in the AHL. He's had success in the AHL. And yes, I understand he slumped on the back half of last season, but he still had a 910 to 915 save percentage this past season. He's put together 2 good campaigns in the AHL. Jesper Wallstedt, who was picked 5 picks later in the same draft, is listed at 9th. He had an 879 save percentage in the AHL,
right,
and he had an 880 save percentage or whatever it was in a 2-week stint in the NHL. Maybe some people will argue, well, that's because he played in the NHL. You know who hasn't played in the NHL? Both Jacob Fowler, who's on this list, and Trey Augustine, who are listed at 5 and 6.
Trey Augustine has even played a pro game.
Right. And he hasn't. He hasn't played in a professional league, but he's played in a professional hockey tournament because he did netmine 4 games, 4 World Championships last season, and he was great. Sure. So that's why I'm like, I want to be very careful because I'm not trying to say Trey Augustine doesn't deserve to be on this list. All I'm saying is if Augustine's on this list, Costa deserves to be on this list.
Right. Pump the tires there all they want. I'm all aboard the Augustine train. I just think, it's inconsistent logic across all these lists. That's all.
Like the logic for Wallstedt, because I read it, I was curious. I'm like, how do you put Wallstedt on here and not Costa? And it's just like, he's proven he can play very good. He needs to play better. I'm like, but he didn't play good this last year, and Costa had a decent. I'm like, whatever. Again, it's not worth getting mad about because it's a made-up list. But here's why I'm mad. Because it's July 17th, and we need things to talk about.
Dang right.
So, anyways, it's silliness. It's goofiness. It's not that serious. He says, seething. Scotty, do you have any other thoughts?
We ball.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode, not tomorrow, Monday, because this is Friday's episode. Monday. And, I'll see you then. Same time, same place. It's your team. Every day.
So weird.
I know. I'm in a mood today.